All right, Shannon, welcome to the GTM Pack podcast. It's so excited to have you on today.
Thanks, Justin. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I think this started from a conversation that we had where I was getting your feedback on Asset Mule, and I was learning about your experience as well as a product marketer, both on the B2B and the B2C side, and sales led and product led. And I was like, man, there's so much great insight that you're sharing with me that I have to have you on the podcast and share this with the rest of our community. So really excited to dig in. But for those that maybe don't know your background, maybe you can start by just giving us a little bit about your career, your background, how you got into product marketing in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to look at the time because I hate it when people spend too much time on this topic. I'm like, just get me to the meat. So I'm going to do this in less than 2 minutes, I hope. There's a lot, like I've been doing this for a long time, but essentially I started my background in more of a research role. I worked in a microbiology lab in college, and then I went to pursue a master's in actually behavioral sciences. Did a lot of research there, was interested in health promotion, so leveraging behavioral sciences to change humans' behavior around health. While I was in grad school, I don't remember how, but I got really into the digital marketing world. It was when blogs were becoming a thing. I'm showing my age, but like back when blogs were first becoming a thing, I decided to launch my own blog, and I had so much fun with it. So upon graduating, I actually got hired on in a tech company. So I live in Austin. That's where I did my undergrad, big tech scene. So I started in the tech industry here and just got more and more into this like digital marketing world, got into demand generation, worked for several startups doing more demand gen, and then started realizing for one company that I was at for 6 years that what I was doing was actually product marketing. A lot of what I was doing in addition to demand gen was solution selling, sales enablement, industry marketing, analyst relations. And I got really passionate about that. And so I took on some consulting work, read some books, did some certifications to get deeper into product marketing, and used that consulting work to transition into only product marketing. So I haven't done demand gen in the last, I think, for 3 or 4 years, just been focusing on product marketing. It's what makes me happiest. I love the role. It's very cross-functional. It's very central to the business. And I was in B2C for several years, but recently moved back into a B2B company. And we'll get into that later. But look, I did it in 2 minutes.
Awesome. No, that's great. And what a background. I mean, there's so many pieces of your background that make for a great product marketer. The research side, even though it wasn't in marketing or in, it was in other fields, is such a good skill to have for product marketing. But even demand gen, right? We're seeing a lot now, product marketers, there's an appetite for sort of that product marketer, growth marketer that knows how to do both things. So I think your background in both research and demand gen make for such a good product marketer. And then as you mentioned, B2B, B2C, if I remember our last conversation, you had mentioned that you spent the last 4 or so years in B2C, and before that you were in B2B. So I'm curious on your take. What's the difference that you see between B2B and B2C product marketing? And as you think about re-entering B2B product marketing now, having been in B2C, what are some of those learnings that you're taking from that B2C experience that you're applying to the B2B world?
Yeah, it's been a fun transition. I really enjoyed working in B2C, but so top of mind, there are a couple of things. Top of mind is the brand, and this will be a common response that you'll hear, but I'll kind of double click a little bit and add some more detail because it's more than just the power of the brand. In business and I was direct to consumer, right? So that's important to highlight. We went direct. It was a mobile app, direct to consumers. So brand consistency was so important, and having a really powerful understanding of your brand pillars. So we had a really structured brand system that had clear pillars on like even emotional pillars. So key themes that we wanted to deliver to our customers, like emotions that we wanted to evoke within our customers. And our product had similar guiding principles for our product development. And so those guiding principles needed to layer up and deliver on that brand promise. And then similarly, anytime I did a product launch, it was very clear to me where it within the brand promise this product fit from an emotional perspective and also from a functional perspective on the product side. And so a great example, I worked in fintech. So a great example was one of our brand pillars was less stress less. Like that was one of the big emotional themes. And one of the product guiding principles was speed. Because one of humans' biggest, most stressful things is like waiting on stuff. Like it's so stressful. Like I'm waiting for a guy to text me back. Worst thing ever. It's so stressful. So it fit really nicely, the product guiding principles within the brand pillars. And so the narrative there was really strong, and you're giving your consumer a really clear emotional experience of like, this is what this product does for me. I think in more mature B2B companies, they really have a great understanding of that. Their guiding principles of their product that layer up into a brand promise. I think in smaller companies, we still lack that on the B2B side. So that's like one of the big, when people say brand, in my opinion, that's kind of what it means for B2B, like what's kind of lacking.
For sure. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot that we can learn from B2C, right? Because I think I heard the first light bulb moment I had on this was Dave Gerhardt, if you're familiar with him. He had mentioned, or he likes to talk about how, yeah, there's B2B and B2C, but we're all people. And whether we're people at home or we're people at work, we have the same emotions and the same sort of thought processes when we buy something. Again, whether it's a consumer product or something for our job. So tapping into the emotions, like you said, it's something that gets overlooked a lot in B2B. But again, it's such a huge part of just buying behavior, and maybe your background in sort of buyer psychology and stuff like that comes in there as well. But I do think like what a great learning and great sort of skill set to bring into B2B product marketing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with B2C, or at least direct to consumer, and in my last role, I really fell in love with the problem that we were solving, because it was a really human problem that was persistent 24/7, financial stress. Whereas on the B2B side, I have to just transparently, I'm less interested in the problem that we're solving, because it's also so different for every single person in their work life. And maybe someone can be really happy at their job, but they still need they need a technology solution. So on the B2B side, I am more in love with the technology that we're building, the product that we're building, versus the problem that we're solving. So that's another thing that's been different. I'm not saying that's the way it should be. It's just, I felt a lot more connected to the problem in D2C. And then one other big difference that I haven't heard talked about very much between B2B and B2C is claims, and the way we use data to help people understand the impact of our product on their day-to-day and their lives. In direct to consumer, claims are really, really important. And what I mean by claims is like data-backed proof points for what your product promise is. One example would be like, using our internal data to demonstrate that you'll save X number of dollars every single year, or you will avoid X number of overdrafts. What I see a lot of in B2B is the high level company claims, like 200 million data sources, 100 integration partners. And those claims are really disconnected from the human that's actually getting the software. And so where I want to see us go in B2B, and we're great at case studies, and I love that because that's storytelling, but I really want to see us lean more into using our internal data to make really powerful claims about how our product is going to deliver value to an individual user. And it's really challenging because you have fewer customers and every customer is a little bit different. But claims was actually a key function of what I did as a product marketer in B2C. I was like working with the data team, like, what can we say about this product that's going to be like, boom, this is the value. But I don't really see that focus in smaller B2B companies as much. So those are just a couple of things. Hopefully it's a different take than what we normally hear.
Yeah, that last one is I find really, really interesting. As you're saying it, I'm sort of like having a light bulb moment, like, wow, that's really true. And maybe it's a good segue into the next question I actually had for you is this, you've also gone from sales led to product led, right? And in that, sales led, maybe you are selling more, executive level or senior level, decision maker level. But product led, a lot of the times it comes from the individual user up, right? Bottoms up. And there, I think claims, like when you're selling to the executive, some of those things about all the integrations you have and like the, data points and all these things, it's like checking the box that this is a credible organization that we're going to work with versus the individual user. Yeah, versus the individual user in a PLG where it's like, what is in this for me? How is this going to help me? Yeah. So I'm curious. That's an interesting sort of mindset shift maybe when it comes from sales led to product led. But I'm going through this transition right now where I've spent my entire career in sales led organizations. Now I'm building a product in a product led motion. And I'm curious, I'd love to sort of pick your brain. What are some other mindset shifts? What are things that you need to think about to be successful in the PLG world? Because like my experience so far is it sounds all great, right? Like people can try it for free and all these things, but it's a lot harder to get right than it seems on paper, right? So I'd love to hear sort of what you've seen lead to success when shifting from sales led to product led.
Yeah, and so my current company is, I would say, pretty much 100% sales led, although we've been exploring product led. My last company was 100% product led. So, and then before that, I was always in sales led. Primarily sales led. But I think a couple of things is agility and experimentation is going to be really, really important for product led. It's you're a smaller team, but if this is a bigger company that's looking to instate a product led motion, it's a different way of working and a different way of thinking. Like you have to be really tight on what you're experimenting, how you're running experiments, how are you determining success. So it's literally a different way of working internally, and you have to be really agile and you have to make sure your team is really agile and able to manage that. One of the coolest things I saw at my last role was we called it an XRD, which was an experiment reference document, which one of the brilliant product managers that I got to work with, he actually developed it himself. And it was a really clear testing framework that outlined exactly what our hypotheses were, what's a go to scale, what's a no-go, what are the guardrails that we have in place and things like that. So I think being really agile and knowing how to stand up and run awesome experiments is absolutely crucial. Even if you continue to fail, you're still learning. And with respect to that, data fluency, and this is a different kind of data fluency, there is a need to understand what are your engineers tagging so that you can measure these things, so that you can execute on lifecycle comms if you want to include that as part of your experimentation. You need to understand the data that is important to your end goal. So is the experiment successful or not? You need to understand the data that is not important. You don't want to go measuring everything. You want to measure things that drive value or insight, and the rest, forget about it. So I think it's a different level of product knowledge and understanding data and how all of that works together. And just in general, I would always keep product led to a smaller, tighter team, like it's typically in a growth team. So if you have like too many cooks in the kitchen, or you've got like all of your salespeople following up on product qualified leads. So you have product qualified leads and marketing qualified leads. We could talk all day about the difference in that, but we won't get into that. There are better podcasts on that than I could deliver. But you want to make sure that the people who are engaging with your product qualified leads are remaining consistent as you're standing up this motion. And you really want like a small, tighter team working on rolling out this product led motion. So I don't know if you heard anything new because you're in it right now. So
yeah, I mean, it just resonated with me. I think, the agility is really, really important. And the data, like you said, when you're in a sales-led motion, you can use humans to sort of like cover the Band-Aid, be a Band-Aid over certain things, right? And also be the communication with your prospects as a means of getting the feedback. In the product-led motion, you don't have that fortune a lot of the times where, if there is a gap in the user experience, the person's going to bounce and you'll never hear from them again, right? So that ability to see those data points and then be able to react to them very quickly to fill those gaps or to smooth out those friction points is something that I've learned very, very quickly in this new journey. I guess one question I have for you is there a big mistake that you see people making when they make that leap? I think there are a lot of companies, by the way, that are exploring product-led, whether it becomes their main motion or whether it like becomes sort of an adjacent motion of growth. A good example of this is, I don't know if you're familiar with the company Novatic. I'm a big fan. I'm a fanatic. I guess they have this term fanatic for Novatic users, but it's an interactive demo product. And they started as more of a sales-led motion, and they just released their first freemium version. And the head of growth, and the head of growth and product marketing over there, Natalie, has been started documenting the journey, and I've been following along. But she talks about different mistakes that they made along the way, as well as like discoveries. I'm curious, have you sort of identified a couple of these key mistakes that people tend to make when they first get started with the PLG motion?
And I'm gonna have to look into that too. If they're starting a PLG motion, I'll have to do some research. So thanks for calling that out. I have several, but I think the one main one that I would highlight, especially being back in B2B, is just like not trying the product-led motion. Just saying our software is too complicated, our technology is too complicated for a custom demo, or a click-through demo, or it's too complicated for a free trial. I think that's really the wrong approach, because when we think about product-led, if you have complicated technology, you're probably always going to have a combined motion, like a combination of PLG and sales-led. But if you think about product-led, usually the metric we're looking at is increasing revenue per employee. I want to make more money and hire less people. So even if your free trial or your click-through demo doesn't deliver on, someone purchasing your software, it could actually get someone 10 or 15% closer the way there, which means your salesperson is saving a couple of hours now in having to convince that person that this is the right move. So I think the biggest mistake I see is people not understanding the goal of product-led, which is make more money with less manpower. And so I just want to see more people like putting it out there and trying it and being really clear on that guiding metric that they're using, and just be like more intentional about what they actually want to see and more realistic about what they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think there's like an angle or like a side effect, which is your product just experience gets better, right? Because if you're starting to think about your product development from the perspective of no handholding, right? Somebody is going to have to go through this experience and experience the value. Yeah, as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. That, whether you end up delivering the sale in a more product led or sales led motion, it just results in a better product experience because you have to think through these little
Totally.
aha moments, right? So
Yeah, you
I
get
think that's
all this
another side
data
effect.
all of a sudden that you would never have before, and then you're like off to the race. Absolutely, it's a gold mine. So that's a great point. So there are learnings to be had for the product team outside of just like there are ways to be successful even if it doesn't move the needle as much. Totally.
Yeah. I wanted to dig into your background with an interest with behavioral psychology because I think again we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but it's such an overlooked part of product marketing and marketing in general. I think people talk about copywriting and like launches and sales assets and things like that, but behind all of this, thinking about the buyer, right, and user behavior and purchasing behavior and all that stuff is the key, I think, to unlocking success. So, how have you used your background and experience and interest in behavioral psychology to influence yourself as a product marketer?
Yeah. So I guess my hot take, and I'll probably get backlash for this. My hot take is if you cannot name, I want to say 10, but I'll say like 6 or 7. If you cannot name 6 or 7 behavioral psychology principles off the top of your head, you are not a marketer, period. If you can't do that, pause this podcast, go buy a book on behavioral psychology. I'm just kidding. Don't pause the podcast. But it is like everything that we do, right? Like marketers are trying to get people to do something. Behavioral psychology is all about, or the behavioral sciences are all about how we can get why people act the way they do. So it's so core to everything that we do, but I think it's almost second nature to a lot of us, and we forget that we actually know these things. And a lot of times we'll read copy and we'll be like, oh yeah, that one sounds better. The reason it sounds better is because subconsciously we actually know that there's like a behavioral psychology hack in there. So it's almost like ingrained in our brains. But I'm a big fan of continuing to read the research. Nancy Harhut is one of the best. I think she puts out a ton of research on behavioral sciences. Her book is called Using Behavioral Sciences in Marketing. Very easy to remember. She published it a couple of years ago. So like, it's a great refresher. For me, some of the things that I like to continue to lean on within product marketing is definitely the storytelling and the emotional piece. Especially in B2B, continuing to remind myself that people buy a better version of themselves. They don't necessarily buy product. And that's the same for B2B. And so if we can help people understand that narrative of like, here's you today, here's you with asset mule, I think that storytelling is one of the most powerful behavioral psychology hacks we have at our fingertips. A couple other ones, you mentioned copywriters. I got to work with like the most brilliant copywriters at my last job, like absolutely amazing. And they were just crossing out everything that I was writing. It was like 90% of what I would write gone. So something that I am always reminding me myself is this the paradox of choice. Too many options, too much stuff on the page. I get overwhelmed. I think as product marketers, we kind of do this naturally. We like trim down, we trim the fat. But I think it's really important, like, why list 5 features if I can only list 3? And so I'm always thinking about that as well in order to not overwhelm whoever my audience is, even internal audiences. And then the last one is that behavior is not going to match intent always. It doesn't always match intent. And this is where product analytics again comes in. You can tell I love product analytics, but you can have someone who gives you a really bad NPS score. So their intent might be to churn, but their behavior in the app is they're like one of your top users in the app, and they're like continuing to go back and go back. And you're like, all right, they're probably not really going to churn, but like we need to figure this out. Versus maybe you have a great conversation with someone on the sales side who's intending to buy, but then you never hear from them again. So I think the more we can remind ourselves that behavior doesn't always match intent, and if we can leverage internal data to validate hypotheses, that can be really powerful. And that's why I like to lean on product analytics so much, because that's the story right there usually.
For sure. I got to check out that book too. I was thinking about, I've read some. Yeah, I read Influence, I think is the one that like a lot of people sort of, share when you talk about psychology. But this one, it sounds like it's specific to marketing, which is really interesting. So I'm going to check that one out.
It's like the only thing you need to read. Like if you're like, I want a refresher on behavioral science and marketing, like just read that.
That's
and you'll be like, oh yeah, I actually knew all of this, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love books that sort of take things that maybe intuitively, maybe through experience, but put it in a framework that is so easy to reference, right? I think those books are the best.
She has a ton of case studies. She's brilliant. Follow her on LinkedIn. She's the best. I promise I'm not getting paid to promote her.
Totally. Well, this wouldn't be a podcast in 2025 if I didn't ask you a question about AI, right? So I have the question, how do you see AI influencing or changing product marketing? How are you using AI? How are you thinking about using AI? Would love just your sort of viewpoint on this shifting landscape.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think this topic is so interesting. I'm not, as far as how I'm using it, I don't have anything visionary. I do have some custom GPTs for competitor intelligence. We're building out a playbook. I won't say what kind of playbook. It's a go-to-market playbook, but that's as specific as I'll get. So I have a custom GPT that's helping me with that. I'm also a really big fan of projects in ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people I know a lot of people don't use it, but I think projects are awesome. I have a project for everything I'm working on, especially like customer discovery, where I just dump in on all my files and it's kind of right there. So it's almost more of like a knowledge base for me. And, I think agentic AI is really extremely powerful. I feel like it's a little bit more so on the demand gen side, like the sales side, how we can leverage agentic AI. I've played around with some tools, but at this point in time, I haven't had too much success, and especially just trying to get an agentic tool into our tech stack is like it's a lot of hurdles to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I really have anything ground. Oh, and I like to use it like back to behavioral science. I like to use it as a bias checker, especially if you're producing content globally. You want to make sure that it's inclusive. Like you're not being unintentionally excluding any communities out there. That was more so in B2C, but I think it applies in B2B. And then I do have a GPT that has the behavioral science principles, and it sometimes helps me brainstorm for like an email hack. Like, how can I put a better hook? How can I so that's like an interesting brainstorming tool as well. I think a lot is going to change with AI as far as how we interact with it. Like right now we're doing voice, we're doing keyboard with large language models. I think all of that is really going to change in the next couple of years. So I'm just like keeping my ear to the ground and playing around with stuff, but I don't have any game-changing things to say on that, unfortunately. What about you?
Yeah, it's same as you. So I have a couple of custom GPTs that are actually personas of our target users, where I fed transcripts in, and obviously I'm not replacing customer interviews with it, but it's like when you need a quick bit of feedback, kind of like your email hook, like I'll ask like our product marketing persona GPT, how could I improve this to resonate more with you? Or like same thing of the sales. I use projects a lot, just like you. So I have a project for my founder brand, right? Where all my LinkedIn posts kind of, I iterate with it. So it has that history, and now it's getting really, really good at getting first drafts out that are, have my voice and my tone and about what I'm talking, what I like talking about. So that's the main way I've been using it. But you said something though. I know you're saying you're being very modest and saying nothing revolutionary, but like I saw a post that you wrote maybe a couple of weeks ago now that really had my mind sort of spinning in terms of where this could go. Where you said AI is the new UI, right? And I think I know what you meant by that, and I think I see that vision as well. But I wanted to sort of like hear what you meant by it.
Yeah, I think what I meant by it is that instead of ChatGPT a month ago or so acquired that company. Is it IO? Where like the famous designer from Apple,
Johnny
like,
Ives,
his company, and I'm like, okay, this is a big sign. So he designed, the iPhone, the iPod, like game-changing, revolutionary technology. But I think what I mean by that is these apps and these desktops are just going to completely go away, and AI is just going to be like ever present and something that's always here. I don't know what that means as far as a UI. Like, it's a question in my head, but it's like, I don't know that we're going to be interacting with screens in 2 years as often as we are. Actually, we almost certainly are not going to. So for me, it was more just like probably random, like probably went for a morning walk, and I don't even remember, but that's the thing. And I think for product marketers and for tech companies in general, it's going to be really cool to see like what is the new user experience of AI. It might become hardware and no longer digital, and we're just so used to a digital world that we could actually revert back and just it's all hardware based.
Yeah, interesting. Here's what I heard you say. It what sort of sparked in my mind is I thought about the different sort of evolutions of technology in the last couple decades, right? From different platform shifts, from the PC to let's say the internet and cloud to mobile and so on, and now AI being. And it seems like in each of those shifts, there was a platform where apps lived on top, right? So like when you had the PC, you had, CDs that you would download an application directly to your laptop or your computer, and you'd use it there. And then on the cloud, you have like SaaS applications like, Salesforce and so on, right? That you're accessing on that platform. And then on the iPhone, you have all the apps that you have, right? So I thought about AI, and I think you actually might have given this example too in your post, but I thought about a world where you interact with AI and you tell it the job that you need done, right? You're not going and logging into an application anymore that to get that one piece of that job done. And travel, I think, might have been the example that you gave, but it's like, So you're not going to like Expedia to book your ticket, and then going to like Hertz to book your car.
You're going to credit card even. It's just taken care of. You're not going to your bank and checking your account. You're like, do I have money? Like, it's all taken care of. Yeah.
Exactly. You go to AI and you say, hey, listen, I need to book a trip to Fiji, right? You said you're going on vacation. And these are the dates. This is my budget, whatever, give it the criteria. And I need a car. I need, this and that. And suddenly your flights are booked, your hotel is booked, or at least, your car, all that stuff is arranged for your approval, right? Yeah. And you didn't pull up multiple applications. So in that sense, the UI isn't the individual applications. It's the agent or the the AI that you're using to handle that job. So I think that's a really, really interesting world. And going back to one thing that you said around agents and prompts and these things, I think these are where there's going to be certain users that interact with those pieces of the puzzle, but I think the end consumer, all that complexity is going to be happening behind the scenes. And the complexity that we see to get today in getting these jobs done, again, is handled behind the scenes. And it's almost like you're interacting with a helper, right? That's going to sort of handle those complexities. So it's a really, really interesting world. And the question again becomes like, how does marketing, how does product development, all these things shift in this world where your product now is accessed through this mediary? And it's like, how do you become the chosen solution, in it, right? Is the interesting thing. So anyway, I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it's interesting to think about.
I think it makes it more important to sell like the outcome and the value, because we very well might soon not have beautiful user interfaces and like, ease of use and things like that. All these fancy reports and stuff. Why do I need that if I can just ask a question and it's delivered to me, So I think it'll be really interesting for how we think about marketing our products in the future. I think we're going to be forced to get a lot more creative and more in tune with really what are we delivering to your day-to-day life, especially in B2B. But I'm glad you reminded me of that. Yeah, that was a fun place.
Yeah, we'll have to circle back in maybe 2 years and see where we're at. But Shannon, this was really fun. I always enjoy digging deep with product marketers that are passionate about their work and the various different nuances with like B2B, B2C, product led, and so on. So this was really a treat for me. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat and share your experience with us. If others, listening to this want to follow you, they want to connect with you, they want to learn from you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. Look me up, Shannon Kearns. I also live in Austin, Texas, and love meeting in person. So DM me if you want to ever meet in person. And then sometimes I'll pop into the Product Marketing Alliance community. I'm also part of Tamara Graminsky's PMM camp, which is a little bit more focused on product marketing leaders. She's amazing. But yeah, probably LinkedIn is the best place.
Awesome. Well, thanks again and have a great day over there.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.